Possible to reach the country areas worst hit by inter-community violence. We saw hundreds of paramilitary police patrolling the streets, and in this community a full company of 150 soldiers was on duty. Their equipment included light tanks. Despite this display of military strength, the major in charge insisted that all was now normal.
Just normal, just normal.
Situation
Nothing,
normal?
Yeah, absolutely, and very fast returning to normal.
But the villagers told us of widespread rioting and killing and of hatred between Hindus and Sikhs.
I don't like to see any Sikh people here.
So Sikh people were killed?
Yeah.
How many?
About 100, 200.
A mob had run down this street, bursting into Sikh houses, spraying them with blazing petrol, and often cutting the long hair from the heads of their Sikh victims. Gruesome evidence in the rubble of their houses.
Massacres of the last 4 days seem to have ended. Shops have been open again in Delhi and there's more public transport. But in refugee camps around the capital, thousands of Sikhs are still taking shelter. Police and troops have been taking tough action against rioters on direct orders from the new Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. Today he announced a new enlarged cabinet. And after attending Mrs. Gandhi's funeral, Mrs. Thatcher and Princess Anne are on their way home. Their plane is due back in the next half hour.
There are more than 16,000 Sikhs in the camps hastily set up around Delhi. In this one, almost every family has a story of murder, burning and beating. And some have the horrific injuries to prove it. All this camp can offer is some rudimentary treatment, but it's better than being outside. On Friday night, there was massacre. 95 people died by the official and perhaps overcautious estimate. One group had tried to take refuge in their temple. It was set on fire. They came out. They were set on fire. Their bodies dumped in a ditch. A group of Hindus and Sikhs have joined together to stage a peace march, calling for an end to the violence. The same group has also provided volunteer doctors, food and clothing for the camps. We had to do something, they said. Putting an end to the slaughter will be the first test of the new Prime Minister. Rajiv Gandhi has announced his new cabinet and made the violence his personal concern. He's twice now toured the worst areas in the dead of night, changed the Delhi governor and stepped up the army presence. Mrs. Gandhi's ashes still lie cooling on top of her funeral pyre. People who couldn't attend the cremation yesterday have been coming to mourn her and replace the garlands of marigolds.
Violence continued against Sikhs in India. The new Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi affirmed that the Sikh sect cannot be held responsible for the assassination of his mother. He said that he did not believe any sane Sikh would commit such a heinous crime. And in another move to win back the confidence of the Sikhs, he announced that the families of those killed in the violent backlash against them would receive 10,000 rupees. That's about £700 for each victim. The official estimate of the number of Sikhs killed has now risen to 1,000. Unofficial estimates put it many times higher, and the full horror of the onslaught on them is only now becoming clear. Thousands have sought protection in special camps, too frightened to go home. From one of these, Ken Rees has sent this report. It was filmed yesterday by an ITN crew, but delayed by an Indian government clampdown on satellite communications.
We travelled to a refugee camp outside Delhi. The police had strict orders not to let us in, despite pleas from some of the Sikhs inside. Eventually we did get in. It was a large college building, now home to thousands of terrified Sikhs living in squalor. They fled here from many miles around and told us stories of how they'd hid in places like drains and fields to avoid the rioting, before eventually reaching safety. This man was a victim of the riots who survived an attempt to burn him alive. His wife tries to comfort him. We saw many more like this who lived, but many died, and their widows were mourning today. You could not move in the courtyards without bumping into or tripping over people. Many were washing outside in gutters in the road. Sikhs place great store on cleanliness, and their religion calls for an uncut beard and long hair. Many had their heads shaved by the mobs. "You see, I used to look like this," said Mr. Puran Singh. His identity card showed a proud bearded man. Now he has no beard and a shorn head. The government wants to destroy us, they told us. They were eager to talk about the situation.
We are homeless, we are familyless, and moreover, above all, no safety. We can't imagine how we will survive ourselves in this India.
The camps are guarded by Indian troops and police. There are at least 3 in the Delhi area alone. At another, just 3 miles away, a food lorry had arrived. The Sikhs angrily told us that they themselves had arranged it. From the government, there's almost nothing, they said. And certainly we noticed a great shortage of food, water and other essentials. Many of the Sikhs claimed that police had stood by and watched and even encouraged the rioting. And we ourselves had seen police look idly on during last week's anti-Sikh riots in Delhi. A relief worker in this camp showed us his list of dead and injured. He'd compiled it after talking to people in just 1 block. The list contained hundreds of names. We were told stories of dreadful horror. Mothers whose children had been killed wept as they spoke. This was the story of just one 6-year-old boy we met in the camp. Can you tell us what happened to this boy?
Petrol was sprinkled on him and set on fire.
He was set on fire? Why?
Because he is a Sardarji.
That's a Sikh.
Sikh.
Who would do such? His mother looked on. She was too dazed to speak.
Just wait 10 minutes, 5 seconds. I will bring people.
No, it's okay. Fine, thank you. The Indian government is telling everybody that the situation is normal. There's nothing to worry about, indeed claiming that many of the reports of trouble were grossly exaggerated. But at 2 camps today, we've seen something like 20 or 30,000 people, many of them living in appalling conditions, some are suffering from terrible injuries. They're now homeless and they think friendless as well.
The assassination of Mrs. Gandhi and the violence that followed mean the Indian general election, which would probably have taken place in January, may now be delayed. Mrs. Gandhi herself would have had a hard fight, and so, despite the sympathy vote, will the new Prime Minister and leader of the Congress Party, Rajiv Gandhi. He might even have trouble winning his chosen constituency of Amethi in Uttar Pradesh, because his opponent there will be his sister-in-law, Maneka Gandhi, the widow of his brother Sanjay. Corbyn met her at her home in Delhi yesterday and asked her if the inexperienced Rajiv could manage the transition of power from his mother.
There already has been a pretty smooth transition if you bar about 10,000 people killed. But I think from the point of view of the government, it was a very smooth transition. It may not have been from the point of view of the people. I don't think he saw anything wrong in it. I don't think his party saw anything wrong in it. And who are we to complain?
Do you see anything wrong in it?
No, I have there's an Indian saying, you know, Jaise Praja, Vaise Raja. How the people are, so will the king be. So if the people are happy, that's fine.
Curfews have been lifted after 4 days of trouble which left more than 1,000 dead. The new Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi has tried hard to calm things down and stamp his own authority on a volatile country. So far, with the support of the army, he appears to be succeeding. This morning he visited his mother's funeral pyre on the banks of the Yamuna River. A priest gave him Mrs. Gandhi's ring and he collected some ashes. The Prime Minister has appointed a senior civil servant to take charge of restoring law and order, but many Sikhs are still suspicious. Most of those killed were Sikhs, and many who survived the mobs are living in refugee camps. Mother Teresa of Calcutta visited them this morning, and they told her they were still afraid. This report from Ian Roth of CBS.
A rhythm returned to the streets of Delhi. There was commerce for the first time since Wednesday's assassination and the violent reaction that followed it. Travelers at the city's teeming railway station were still stranded. Most train service has not been restored. Nor is there much traffic on main roads leading to Delhi. Drivers of the trucks that normally carry food are mostly members of the Sikh religious minority, and they're afraid. But there are other ways to haul provisions, and markets were full, even though some merchants were apparently profiting from the disruption of the past few days.
Today I got up and tried to find some supplies, and I have been able to find, but it's very expensive.
Shoppers said prices for basic goods, vegetables, fruit, milk were up 300% or more. Government troops are still patrolling the streets. Officials now say the death toll in Delhi over the past 4 days was 438 people. 379 of them were Sikhs. Many Sikhs have also lost their homes. The government says more than 10,000 are currently living in relief centers and refugee camps. How the government will resettle them or even reassure them isn't known.
Well, on the line now from Delhi is our reporter Ken Rees, who went there soon after the assassination. Ken, how were things when you went to the camps this morning?
Well, conditions in the camps are absolutely appalling, and that's in no sense an exaggeration, Leonard. We saw at least 20,000 survivors of the massacres and riots crowded into 3 camps around Delhi this morning. The Delhi police made strenuous efforts to keep Western pressmen out. When we eventually got in with the help of some Sikhs, we saw exactly why that was. In conditions of squalor, thousands of Sikhs are packed into filthy buildings with little food or water and only basic facilities. The Sikhs were showing us many people there who'd been set alight by mobs, including a boy of just 6 years old. Scores of widows were sitting in groups sobbing and mourning their dead husbands. It was absolutely a pathetic sight. Lines of tanks were on duty outside. The troops said they were there to protect the Sikhs, and the Sikhs were allowed to walk in and out of the camps, but the camps were very, very crowded, and the Sikhs told us how the police had stood back, even encouraging the mobs and inciting them to attack Sikh property.
Presumably, Ken, there'll be a move now to get them out as quickly as possible.
Well, the problem is, Leonard, to get them to where? Because most of them were fairly well settled in communities alongside Hindus and Muslims, and feelings are running so high. They say they don't want to go back home. They're fearful to leave the camps. Many, indeed, are trying to get back to their home state of Punjab, where, of course, the Sikh separatist movement is active.
Ken, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, Leonard.
Well, obviously, the inquiry now begins into who was responsible for the assassination. A High Court judge will head the inquiry and sift the rumours already gaining strength about who's to blame. The official version blames 2 of Mrs. Gandhi's Sikh bodyguards. They were themselves shot. The survivor says an army general was behind the plot. The Soviet newspaper Pravda has hinted that the Americans were involved, and that's been hotly denied in Washington. The British MP Eldon Griffiths, a close friend of the Gandhi family, was the only European allowed near the funeral pyre at Saturday's funeral. He has suspicions about the assassination, and he's now in our Norwich studio. Mr. Griffiths, whenever there's a political murder, there are cries of conspiracy. What's fueled your own suspicions this time?
Well, I walked along the path where Mrs. Gandhi was killed within a relatively short time of her death. The blood was still there. I looked at the gate where the 2 guards were, and I was able to speak to those who had been direct eyewitnesses within a matter of feet of the Prime Minister as she died. The first thing is that it is almost impossible to believe that the only 2 members of the security force, which is several hundred people, who were on duty at that specific time at that one gate, happened to be only the ones who were prepared to kill her. The arrangements, the rostering, the arrangements that put them on that gate have to have involved more people than just Mr. Beant Singh, who is dead, and the other Sikh who is still alive. Secondly, right since the invasion by the Indian Army of the Golden Temple, the Sikhs have made it crystal clear that they would kill Mrs. Gandhi if they could. And during that period, I have no doubt that the people bodyguarding her could and should have been positively vetted to make sure that none of them was likely to be her killer. One of the 2 who did kill her went back to his home, which is a particular part of the Punjab where the Sikhs were most particularly committed to her destruction. He returned to Delhi. He was not taken off duty. He ought to have been.
If, as you suggest, the 2 bodyguards who shot her were in fact themselves shot in a police post and not immediately afterwards, that suggests that other police in the bodyguard must have been in the plot, doesn't it?
Well, it's possible that they wanted to shut them up before they were able to give their evidence. You see, they didn't try to get away. They surrendered. They threw down their weapons, and one of them is reported as saying, "Our task is done, praise be to God." And of course this ensured for those 2 Sikhs their place in heaven under the arrangements that their high priests had proposed. So they were the most important witnesses, and the police who arrested them most certainly would, in the ordinary way, have wanted to ensure that they were available to give evidence in the court and indeed to give evidence to the inquiry.
Do you think the inquiry will, in fact, get to the bottom of this in present circumstances in India?
I'm sure of one thing, and that is that the new Prime Minister is determined that it should.
Mr. Griffiths, thank you very much indeed.
Crowd aboard the Punjab Express this morning, leaving the troubled streets of Delhi for the relative calm of their home state in the north. But troops patrol the streets of Amritsar on this holiest of Sikh days. It was here in June that Mrs. Gandhi launched Operation Blue Star, sending in troops to drive extremists from the beloved Golden Temple. Now there are fears of continuing bloodshed following the assassination of Mrs. Gandhi by 2 Sikh extremists. Even moderate Sikhs concede that unless the new Prime Minister negotiates in earnest over their demands for more autonomy, then they may not be able to control their militants. All Sikhs now feel that they're under suspicion following Mrs. Gandhi's death. Eyewitness accounts of how police and local politicians encourage brutal reprisals against their people and are making many Sikhs say that prayers are simply not enough. In Delhi today, troops are everywhere keeping the peace, here escorting a party of Sikhs in fear of their lives. Armed guards are on duty at their holy shrines where only a handful of the usual thousands turned up. Outside, all the talk is of relatives who escaped the mob or those who died. There is talk of revenge, or, with many of their leaders now out of action, what to do about the future.
Definitely the Sikhs will take their revenge from the government and particularly from Hindus.
We cannot retaliate because people who are living outside Punjab, they are very few in number.
If the Indian government need to know that they've got a big problem to deal with amongst the Sikhs right now, then they need come no further than this temple in the centre of Delhi. Ken Reid.
But tucked away in the suburbs, there are many other gurdwaras, which are more of a sanctuary in a hostile world than a place of worship.
We are not going to celebrate any holiday. We'll do a simple prayer over here. Simple prayer. We'll pray to God. Whatever leftover people are there, God should give their life, and people whose souls have been departed, they will give God should give a rest to their souls. We'll only pray this thing. And next time it should not happen.
A week after the massacres began, the Gurdwara at Durga Puri and its neighbouring houses are still crammed to the eaves with some 2,000 Sikhs who sought refuge from the massacres. If they did not celebrate their holy day with the usual ritual, it was because the events that followed Mrs. Gandhi's death had left them too numb.
Nobody is happy. All are sad. They have lost their families. They have lost their husbands. Ladies have lost their husbands. Husbands have lost their wives.
Okay, all new people joining Dalu sit there so that he can please
whatever relevant information we get from the...
To some extent, the prayers which many communities have offered for the Sikhs have now been answered. Relief centres like this one, run by the People's Unity Committee, an ad hoc group of volunteers, are overflowing with blankets, food and clothes, destined for Sikhs stranded in Gurdwaras or refugee camps. But however badly they may be needed, none of the supplies piling up in the relief workers' stores will meet the most urgent need of the survivors, the need for news. News of what happened to their brothers, sisters, parents or children from whom they became separated during the chaos of the massacres.
When these mobs turned down on them, there was just panic. So it is, in certain cases, the men and the women have just run away from there to wherever they could find any space, leaving the children behind at times.
In the big refugee camps, the relay system can hardly keep pace with the piles of scribbled messages and appeals for missing relatives. In the whole of Delhi, relief workers estimate there may be as many as 20,000 people who've had no news of at least one close relative since the massacre. The task of tracking them down is all but impossible. There are 15,000 people listed as living at this one refugee camp alone. All are worried about going home, but but many are even more worried about whether they'll ever see their missing relatives again.
My brother-in-law has been to Rishikesh for the cremation ceremony of my relatives over there. When he was coming back on the 1st of November by bus, he was caught at Loni border. And there were 2 persons, and both were Sikhs. Only 2 Sikhs were there in the bus. The mob was attacked. One was took by the 200 people and another was took by the 200 people. They were beaten up. We don't know what happened with them. And since 1st of the November, they are missing.
All his sons, they have been burned. And now only two daughters of her are missing now.
So she's missing her 2 daughters?
Yes,
yes. How old are they?
Pardon?
How old were they?
One is 18, one is 22.
The camp officials are keen to help, but they have more urgent problems to worry about. The late arrival of medicines and bad sanitation has led to fears of epidemics of cholera, typhoid or malaria. And while Sikhs who are still living at home call regularly for news of relatives, many of those in the camps are still too fearful to list the names and addresses of missing Sikh relations.
They're very scared. They might not tell us, even if the person is there. He might not tell us that he is there, so it's going to require a lot of convincing that, look, we've come to help you.
Why is that? Why would they be scared?
Because they don't trust people after what they've been through.
It has to be compiled.
Volunteers at the People's Unity Committee are now compiling a list of the missing. With so many bodies burnt beyond recognition, it'll be the only way of determining who survived and who didn't. Already they've listed 1,500 names.
We're only trying to see the positive aspect so far. Later on, of course, it will be out that they're dead. But we're concentrating our energies into locating the missing people, because I think there's a ray of hope that this person might be alive. And the families are very, very anxious.
The only real hope that families will soon be reunited is if they return home. In the more sensitive areas, that prospect may be remote. Here, the army is still offering stragglers an armed escort to the camps. But the government has promised a rehabilitation program, and there are increasing signs that many Hindus and Muslims are actively urging their Sikh neighbors to come home. One man who has been welcomed home is Harban Singh, an East Delhi carpenter. This afternoon, he returned to his shop to find the work of 10 years burnt to the ground. But the damage was done by outsiders, and like many Sikhs, he remains on good terms with local Hindus. His next-door neighbor, Anil, even sheltered his son, till both Sikh and Hindu had to flee from the mob. Despite the damage, Harban is lucky. He's now found his son. Thousands of others may have to search far longer. On a day which symbolizes tolerance, the Sikhs have mourned their dead in peace. But until there's some guarantee they can all return home and be reunited with their families, there'll be many who do not know